Hi folks, welcome back to Cooking with Drew Williams. Today we're talking about cast iron. I've got a lot of my, I don't have a huge collection, but I've got a good bit going, and I've recently got some new items that I wanted to show you. Some of these items back here are ones I've had for quite a while now. Recently, so some of the items that I've got are came from my mother. Some of them came from my grandmother. Some of them I've had that I bought new that came from Thrift Town. Actually, some of my favorite ones, like this one, I've got one here and one at the Deerland that are just the same, and they came from Thrift Town. They're two of my favorites that I use just for biscuits and cornbread, and they're just lodges, nothing fancy about them. What I have found as I started learning more about this stuff is that some of what I have is not Lodge, and they're a much better brand. There's a few brands that are really antique-y called Wagner. Recently at the lake I was cleaning up in the kitchen, and at the very back of the cupboard I found a few pieces of cast iron that I didn't know Mama had, and I don't know exactly where they came from, but this one is a Wagner, and it is just beautiful finish on it, and the markings on this suggest that it is very old, so it's very slick. I've been redoing the seasoning on some of these pans as I clean them up, and they're looking really good and slick and black. This small one came from the lake, and I wanted the small one. I think it's going to be good for eggs and such like. This is a little cornbread stick thing. Now I've got to work some more on the seasoning on this one. That's a cool piece, cornbread sticks. And I had a old griddle that Mama gave me quite some time ago. Is this one here, and I found this one at the lake, and it's very different. I'm not sure what brands they are. I'm trying to figure all that out. But this one, well, let me show you. This one has like a heat ring on the bottom, and this one has like a total opposite of a heat ring. It's got an indentation all the way around. So I need to find out what's the story on this one. I'm having fun kind of researching the history of these things and learning how old they are and stuff like that. Like I say now, here's one that I got from Grandma in Broxton, and it turns out that as I've learned more about it, and it's very crusty on the back. I can barely see the logo, but it is a Griswold, and a Griswold is very old, very antique-y. This is probably from the 30s, and the same thing with my Wagner ware right there. So not sure if it was my grandmother's, in this case. I think that could be Daddy's mother's, and I think that this definitely came from Grandma here. And so I was really excited to see that I've got some of these other brands that are considered to be more special than just a Lodge. There's nothing wrong with Lodge, and I've got a few of those as well. There's also a fourth. All right, so we got Lodge, we've got Wagner, we've got Griswold, and there's another one called a BSR, and that is Birmingham. What is it? Birmingham Steve. I forget. Birmingham Stove something. Anyway, that's a well-known brand, and they're real old and real sturdy, and you can tell you've got one of those by its distinctive triangular type handle here. So I'm learning about this stuff as I go and trying to identify what I've got. And I'm also restoring some of this stuff as I find it. Pat Schrader recently at the Deerland gave me 2 pieces of Lodge that are They're actually pretty rusted. I think they were inside a grill, but these are some of Pat's from a long time ago, early days at the Deerland, and he gave these to me for see if I can clean them up. And I have started doing so. This one right here, I've already kind of started working on, and both of these were very rusted. And what I've been doing is just taking a steel wire brush attached to the drill and going through and getting all the rust off of it. I've been doing that on the inside, the handles, on the back of it, and then you kind of move on to the next step. So you got to knock all the rust off of it before you move on to the next step. And that's what I'm going to do right now. After you've knocked all the rust off, what you want to do is get some really hot water going. And this is one of the only times that you would use any soap. So I'm going to use a little bit of soap on this and really clean this unit super good. Okay, then I'm going to heat it up on the stovetop. I'm going to give it a coating of Crisco and do the seasoning process a few times. And these two rusted pans, they're going to be just as good as new. Crisco works fine for this. Now you have to use a lint-free rag. You can use, what I've done is cut up a old t-shirt into several pieces. If you use paper towels on this, it will, little bits of the paper towel will be left in the pan, and it'll become part of your seasoning, and you don't want that. So it has to be lint-free rags. Interestingly, you can use the blue kind of paper towels like you would get at Home Depot. They are lint-free. But your best bet is just to use a t-shirt, and you wipe on a good bit of this Crisco. You throw it in the oven at about 400 for at least 30 minutes. You can leave it for an hour. Then turn it off and let it cool in there, and check it out and see how you've done. And you can repeat that as many times as needed. With these two rusted ones that I'm fixing to start working on, it might take I'll do it at least 3 times, I think, to make them good and non-stick. But you'd be surprised. Here's what they started with. Okay, very rusted. Here it is after I've knocked off a little bit of the rust, fixing to wash it and begin the seasoning process. So let me do that now, and I'll check back with y'all in just a few minutes, and we're going to transition these old rusted pans into beautiful pans like what I've got back here. Alright folks, welcome back. We've been seasoning that pan that we just re-seasoned. The one that is not really a restore pan, but it actually, just moments ago, or an hour ago, it looked just like this one. Very rusted. Very rusted. We used the bristle brush attached to the DeWalt drill to get all the rust off. Then we washed it thoroughly with a stiff brush and some soap and a rag. We got all the everything out of the pores of the pan. We seasoned it with some Crisco, and we threw it in the oven at about 400 degrees for about 45 minutes. And we did that once, and then we did that again twice. So right now it's finishing up. It just beeped, and we're going to pull it out and see what it looks like. Well, that looks a whole lot better. Look at this, you guys. Huh? Can you see it? Alright, this is the same pan that was rusted only a little while ago. I'm going to hold up the two of them together in front of the GoPro and see if you can see that. I'm going to do it right down here in the sink and see if you can see that. Right, there's your difference right there. Folks, stick with us here at Cooking with Drew Williams. We're doing a lot of cast iron cooking. That's the reason we're conditioning all these pans. We are fixing to do a ongoing series of cowboy cooking, and it's going to be outdoor cast iron cooking. It's going to be Dutch oven cooking, and it's kind of going to be in the style of Cowboy Kent Rollins, if you know who he is. If you don't, then look into him. Cowboy Kent Rollins does a real good job on YouTube with his cooking shows, and he uses nothing but cast iron, whether it's skillets or Dutch ovens. That's what he specializes in. He's been on several cooking shows on the TV, and he's won several of those cooking shows as far as contests, and so he's really cool. And so look for some of my shows to be coming up with a cowboy theme. And in the meantime, I've just been getting these guys ready to go, and I've showed you how to do it. It's when you think that you've got a bad cast iron deal, it's not worth it. It is. It's just with just a little bit of attention, you can go from here